I want us to understand what our power is, number one. Because if we can understand our power, then we can utilize it in a very powerful way. But what's going on today is most people don't know what their power is. Social media gives us command over reality like no generation has ever before. But before you give people that kind of power, you first must wipe away their will to use that power. You must destroy, right, the demands that they will have once they get their hands on technology, once they get their hands on the ability to create their own currencies, once they have access to produce their own systems, once they literally have the technology to create a new world, you must destroy the will of that younger generation so they're not willful whatsoever. Because if they operating from a God mind, then that means that they want to rule the world. They don't want to be ruled by the world. But we have a generation today that wants to be ruled by the world. They want to be told what to eat and what to think and what to do. They want their music selected for them and curated. We operate like machines, judge things by numbers instead of feeling. We judge the art by the numbers instead of how it actually connects to us. We judge people by opinions of the crowd versus actual, real, substantial evidence. How is it that we, a generation that has the most power ever, but we lack the most will ever? There was just a study that showed that this is the weakest generation ever. By weakest, I mean physically weak. Why? It's because we do more scrolling than you spend more time actually working out, right? Or actually doing physical feats. So you're not in the gym, you're more so on the phone. There's more screen time than outside time. You even stare at the cosmos less. So you study and watch conspiracies and ideas about the universe, but you don't actually stare at the stars. We get all of our events and news about the universe from a black screen, but we don't actually step outside. We talk about nature on the phone, but not actually in nature. This is the most disconnected generation ever before, and it shows. Such a large percentage of Gen Z men are lonely because they forgot the art of how to create connection. See, during the time before there was social media and things of that nature, they could have economic boycotts and decide to say, you know what? We can shut down whole entire bus systems because word would travel and people was in a unified effort understanding the collective enemy of progress. But during that time, they had limited resources. Their best resources was a united front. Well, if we all do it, then it's powerful. Today, we have more communication to reach more people than any other point in history of the planet Earth. I mean, the average person can reach more people than Malcolm X could during his time. Just the average person can get lucky and send a message out that goes farther than Martin Luther King during his time. Because you have to remember, they was completely dependent upon the media and what the media machines would press up and the way it was spoken and what the news channels, who were then owned as well by their very enemy, would say about them and how they would report it. Today, we have the ability to sell our own narrative, to tell our own stories. But what stories are we telling? This is the most potential filled time ever. So, what will we do with it becomes the question. During this election cycle, I've seen so many people that believe what they saw on media. They really fell into this idea of let's make America great again. not realizing that America has always been divided. It is a multinational system. It's not one country. It is a multinational system, a multinational corporation that is now going into a reconstruction phase because it realized that places like Africa that have less infrastructure can actually move into the future faster. Why? Because they don't have to go destroy all of the broadband to move forward to 6G and 7G. They don't have to get rid of pre existing systems to implement AI and blockchain and cryptocurrencies, right, in their systems because they don't have existing systems for the most part. And they have the youngest generation ever about to be to where the average age is 19 in Africa. And by 2050, they're going to have like another billion people. So they're primed for the future, and while America is sinking, like South Korea is sinking in their ability to produce more people. These Asian countries are consistently going down. So they're utilizing the technology because they need to artificially play God, where they don't have the influence and the force and the body power. So they say, well, if America used to be resilient as a country based on its brain power, it could get the brain trust from all around the world to come to America, meaning that the people, the smart people in India will come over here, right, in Africa and China and all these different places. And they will help build the technology and the science and help America stay ahead for a promise of a better future. And they can take that money and then they can send it back to their country. Well, a shift happened. The shift was we don't need to go to America to do that. We can do this in our country because the world had modernized in those other places enough. India went from a civilization, right, to actually becoming a country to where they can compete with other countries, setting up infrastructures of commerce and things of that nature, which allowed them to move faster because, again, they didn't have the existing infrastructures in place. So when new technology came, they already had more advanced technology than places that have been right set up already. And same thing in China, in Shenzhen, China, when they took rural areas, right, and they said we want to add the technology and the AI and all these things. Well, it was easy for them to do because there was nothing to tear down. There were only things to build up. So now they have more technologically advanced places than in the US, who had a head start of them for 50 years. So America is looking like, man, how the hell do we implement the same thing? Especially when we look at AI. AI, as I study the 19 keys, AI numerical value A, I numerical value 9. When I said we was in the age of the 19, you have to understand language. The 1 and the 9 represents man and woman. It also represents, right, God, the Alpha and Omega. You know what I'm saying? It represents that when those two are together, there's something to be born. Now, when you look at that power, that cosmic power in play, and we study this, then we also understand that artificial intelligence is AI. The DNA adds up to the number 19, DNA, if you add up to those numbers, right? So when you have a society that is not birthing enough, then they do what? Artificial insemination. Donald Trump just signed in law that they want to help people produce babies that couldn't otherwise because they want to have a baby boom. During COVID, this country went what you call a baby bust, right? The body is dying. The energy that's stored in the body is no longer resilient. The people of the sun is not even producing as many babies. And this is why they pushing us to abort our babies more. Because why would you want some other people producing babies all day long when there's a population decline in your people? That wouldn't make sense. Nah, you wouldn't want that to happen, would you? So what's going on today is you have artificial ingredients. That's another AI, fake food, GMOs. But they realize that, wait a minute, you have two different competing agendas. One who wants population control and one who wants a population boom. So the old world guards, the Henry Kissingers and things of that nature will focus on how do we control population from overgrowing. Then you realize, like, wait a minute, That's not the right move because our people are actually declining in birth. So now you have towns in America, and these reports that came out in the early 2019s, how there's so many towns in America whose population is declining. So now they have to bring in immigrants, right, to come in and do the work and see if they could actually reproduce that population again. Remember, America is a multinational state. So all of these AIs are happening. But the problem is when you got the people that want the population to stop, people that want the population to grow, like Elon was pushing the message of population growth, while Bill Gates was pushing the message of population control. So these are two competing agendas and philosophies and ideas. Kamala was pushing population control. That's the Democrats and the Republicans. The Republicans say, wait a minute now, we need to save America. We need, meaning white America, right? So therefore, they have to go against the pharmaceutical corporations and they put in somebody like JFK. They put in the different people to see if they can prop up their numbers again to get America healthy again because they need the sperm working again. They need the mind working again. They need better schooling systems and better education. Math and arithmetic is at an all-time low. While people are focused on gender and reaffirming and all of these other different things, the children don't know how to read. So they're arguing about whether he's going to be she and she's going to be he. And they don't even have comprehension skills at a high level anymore. Huh. Now, even Drake is complaining about AI. Artificial inflation. That was his complaint. They artificially inflating numbers. So now the music business is being taken down because why? The hip hop had become an industry instead of an art. And this industry is business. And in the business is marketing, is branding. They utilize machines so they can control the spirit of the people. And these machines utilize bot to artificially inflate presence, numbers, right? So the thing about it is this is the machine going against the machine. This is the machine going against the machine. So this age of AI is shaping up nicely to be what it's supposed to be. Oh, I just needed to bring the sound back. Thank you. We back in the game. Don't worry about it. So when we talking about God power and the mind of God, right? It's not about the artificial. It's about one being back in line, right? With that masculine and that feminine. Remember that feminine, right? That's why the number 9, right, is represented within that woman. It's the same way you have the sun and you have the 9 planets. All things are supposed to be in order and balance. But in white patriarchal intellect, his world is always in balance, and there will never be a balanced world, no matter what he does, no matter how many changes he has in his world. Now, why do I say that? The reason I say that is because as long as a population of people does not put their woman first or equal to them, I ain't even gonna say equal, that's not the right word. If they don't put their woman beside them, then they can never have balance. So, man being the 1, the woman being the 9. When that 1 is next to the 9, it increases the value of that 1 because by itself it's just 1. But with that 9, and they're only the numbers that exist are the numbers between 1 and 9. So it represents the full spectrum. But in his paradigm, and we seen this during the times of 9/11. 9/11 was basically an emergency call that, listen, we're losing our power, right? And so-called 19 hijackers, right? The number 19 is riddled all up in there. But what you see was that was a time of emergency call that we need to put things back in order. Otherwise, we'll completely lose. America keeps its power by um, military presence, influence. So it's losing that military presence because the war machine is being depleted. That's not sustainable, right? And they say, wait a minute, we have new ways to make money now. We don't want to continue to stay at war. We can't do that. We don't even have the population we can afford. And the bureaucracy to allow the machines to be made is not up there yet. So they can't afford to go to war right now. Doesn't make sense. But you have old war machines that need to be fed. So this is where you see competing interests in the government, old money, new money. The Warren Buffetts and the Charlie Mungers of the world say F crypto. And then now you have the new money saying that, no, this is what we need. Because one side of them are based on the Constitution, the founding fathers. Well, Donald Trump is not a constitutional president. If you actually go read the Constitution and you read a lot of the things that the founding fathers have said, right, a lot of those words will be against Donald Trump. When I was in Boston just a few weeks ago, I was reading those words and it almost sounded like they was criticizing him verbatim. It was actually interesting. But what you realize is that the Constitution was written in the 1700s in a very old world. And those founding fathers didn't have the insight for the world that we live in, a world with technology, a world with that has no borders, a global world, right? Where we're interconnected. These invisible lines that disconnect us no longer exist because now we're communicating and now we even have AI to where language barrier is no longer an issue, to where social media is allowing people's communication to cross barriers by automatically translating the language. So now influencers in America reaching people in Korea and China and India and vice versa because we can understand each other. So they didn't know circumstances of AI would come up. The conversations around AI didn't pop up until Alan Turing. So therefore, they didn't, the presidency itself, the idea of the presidency, this one person having this dominant power to decide over the world. Well, the world has gotten too big for a president. The world has gotten too big for one man to rule all. You can't watch everything. You can't see everything. Now we have quantum machines, right? And AI and new realities. You can't keep up with all of that. There's no goddamn way that one man can cover all of that, and that position of power is enough. So there has to be a reconstruction. Now let's take this into Black America. Black America historically has been running very inefficient rather. How do we know? Let's look at Kamala. She raised historically $1.1 billion during her election. What did we get from that? Out of all of that energy stored into it, out of all that money that went into it, what changed? Nothing. That's inefficient. That's billions of ions of energy poured into only for no change to happen. No neighborhoods change, no hoods change, no health conditions change, no financial conditions change, no mortality rates have changed, nothing. That's inefficient. Now, if we thinking intelligent and we in our God mind, we say, wait a minute, do we continue to allow the inefficiencies to exist? Especially when we have new technological development that will allow us to make quantum leaps, to make progress? Huh. Well, how do we do that? Well, a lot of the gatekeepers of the culture is stopping a lot of progress. Why? I'll give you an example, right? Now, by the numbers, by my show and the metrics of what we've done, traveling around the world, teaching people, being 90+% accurate on predictions of technology and innovation, you would think there would be a celebration and a culture for my type of archetype. Nope. Why? Because I don't represent what they believe is safe. And they believe they got too much to lose to stand next to somebody like myself or celebrate and or award. I've been on many platforms, sure. But then they leave us out. They leave us out 100% every single time. Why? We got the numbers, we have the presence, but they don't consider us to be safe because they've decided that they have an archetype that they only consider, right, to be allowed because they have too much to lose by being too disruptive and too radical. They have sponsorships that they have to keep. Well, then why do we continue to give them respect? The BETs, the Revolts, the Black Enterprises, the Essences, the Afrotechs of the world, the Black churches, the NAACPs, the activist organizations and groups. Can we truly move forward if these are the gatekeepers of Black culture? Or does there need to be a period of deconstruction? Do we need to divest and defund our interest in these things and move away? But then there has to be an aggressive dismantling of these organizations. And then a new wave needs to be put in. The same way everybody else around the world does it when things are not working and they're inefficient, because we have a culture that is built off the civil rights movement. And I'll be honest, same way the founding fathers, ideas, methodologies, philosophies, ideologies are outdated for this new world, it's the same way that the civil rights leaders are outdated for the world that we live in. So those ancestors may have died for the right to vote, but voting is such a small measure in our plans for power, because if they had the technology and the access that we have today, then they would agree as well that there are more methods to be more efficient for your liberation and your freedom. I'm sure they would. It's just during that time, all you had was a few rights, a few things to fight for, because they had lost that idea that they were going to defeat white supremacy. After World War II, after Japan lost the war, they seen Japan lose so bad, they say, let's just vote. They seen them drop a bomb on Hiroshima and said, let's just vote. And then Martin Luther King died for saying that he wanted to boycott Coca-Cola. And here we are, taking all the endorsement deals from Coca-Cola, singing the praises of Martin Luther King, taking all the deals from McDonald's, singing the praises of your ancestors, though. That's what they died for? Come on now, stop the cap. So if there's to be efficiency, then there has to be new models where we have to utilize blockchain technology to create nation states, utilizing our digital connectivity to utilize decentralized autonomous organizations so that we can utilize the voting power of these apparatuses, so that there's trustless systems and transparency, and we can implement these ideas on a smart contract. And if anybody not with it, it's okay. We can just aggressively oppose them the same way they aggressively oppose us, because the gatekeeper culture is white supremacy, because it's built off this foundation that they don't want to lose their place. While I got to respect the moves that white America is taking today, I got to respect it, because they see their young men failing. They see their young men failing. They see their young men falling. And they see that they're soft and effeminate, and they want to do something about it, aggressive, to the point they're ready to take over the whole government, push out a whole entire campaign. And we can get emotional about it all we want to, but I respect when they out there trying to save their sons and their daughters and put them back on the path that they believe in that restores family order and structure, to listen to the father and the mother. And if we're not doing the same thing, then how dare you criticize the way somebody saves their family? That's it. We can complain about the banks, or we can create our own currencies, and then percentages of those currencies can go directly into building infrastructures and real world assets based on that community being locked into the same ideas and perspectives, vision and mission and values. Sure, UMG is bodying and doing these things, but who cares? That's UMG. They're supposed to do that. Their interest in how they can make these records perform so they can increase profits. Man, I don't care about nothing else. We've seen Lara Cohen go up there and say that they don't care how many people that die from the music that influences people to do drugs and things of that nature. He said he only care about that bottom line, so his family got to eat. So if your family got to wait for his family to eat, then so be it. You reap what you sow. We need more broadcasts like this, more conversations that pull us into the future. Because it's going to get to a point where the words too late are going to be too late. There was a article that came out about the Red Onion State Prison and how the conditions at this prison was so horrific that the brothers set themselves on fire because there was feces in the food and bugs and the racist treatment. And someone was saying that it was because another prison had a burn unit, so they were setting themselves on fire so they could try to get out the prison and get transferred, from what I hear. This was their protest. Now, here we are in 2025. We hear about something like that, but how much power we actually have to manifest change instantly. I'm not talking about protesting, going in the streets. We should have a direct pipeline to power. As soon as we hear something, we have organized power and infrastructure that shuts stuff down. But if we about to go to our old ways and just go protest in the street without the infrastructure behind it, so that the protest is 1,000 times more effective, then we might as well stay at home and do nothing. The other day I did a broadcast and I was talking about cryptocurrency. And I was talking about how a lot of the boomer coins, coins that had previously did well in previous cycles. And I talked to the community earlier. I sent the message on my infinite wealth strategies on how to play the all-time highs. And what I know for a fact, though, is that we hear stuff, but we don't actually activate. I talked to my community yesterday about the difference between mirrors and projectors and how most people are just mirrors. The way you walk into a mirror and you see yourself, it's reflecting exactly where you are. Nothing other than that. Same way you look at a phone is a mirror, it's a black mirror. What you see, you mirror as well. We have what we call mirror neurons in our own body, where there was a study that had done that they showed people that would walk into an elevator. And even though the doors opened up on one side, there were people that was a part of the experiment, like 3 people, and they would see if the participant that will walk in to the elevator will follow everybody else. So those people would then turn around and face the wall that had no doors in it And 9 out of 10, the participants would turn around too, for no good reason. Our mirror neurons make us want to mirror what we see, reflect that in our actions. This is why our environment is so powerful. But when you are a projector, you don't simply reflect what's in your reality, you project what you want to see in your reality. So when I look in the mirror, I see who I'm becoming, not just who I am. I close my mind, I close my eyes rather, and in my mind's eye, I see the world that I'm affecting, that I'm projecting, versus just what the news is feeding me and I'm consuming and I'm reflecting more of that and I'm just reacting. So we have to have more projection about the world that we want to live in. And when we talk about the future, we can't speak upon it in just such a bleak manner as far as what they're doing with any disregard to how we will impact and or affect the world. Because that don't make any sense. Now do it. How are we just reflecting what they tell us and not telling them what our plans are so we can use their minds to help bring out our world? So we have to go into becoming better projectors, and we have to learn how to be a people who know how to take action. The ADHD generation. Kendrick Lamar talked about that. But what does it really mean? The ADHD generation is a generation that can't focus. They can't take something from a thought and birth it into reality, meaning that they quit. Always quitting. Start, then quit. Most people, they start a new thing and they never get to see what it looks like from years, especially if they're not successful in the beginning. So they're not stimulated enough based on the outcome and they're not enjoying the process to stay stimulated. So they're constantly seeking the next stimulation. Well, this is getting boring. Let me go do this. No, the original idea was the God mind. The God mind was sparked, but the God mind needs to be constantly charged up so that frequency can produce it into reality. But we have a war that goes on in the world, and the war of the world is to keep you from being focused. That's the whole war. And the way you win is to find focus. Then, no matter what's going on in the world, you have the ability to shut it out and get things done. That is the sign of a successful mind. That is the sign of a God mind. When the devil get a hold of you, all he does is he snatch you up and he keeps you away from yourself. He say, look over here, she's thick. Look over here, he's rich. Look over here, the world is burning. Look over here, how concerned about the industry. Right? Look over here, there's a party going on. Oh, let's go smoke. All of these things, none of these things that matter. And the ability to shut it off, the scrolling, the sugar, the foods, the weeds, all of this stuff. It's like you fighting and you're in a jungle and there's so much stuff you got to swat to be clear-minded. But you can never be clear-minded if you just stuck in the black mirror. The God mind will never activate to where the knowledge becomes light, that becomes enlightenment so that it becomes you. The problem is that we are a generation, this Gen Z generation. They're exposed to information without understanding. They hear about consciousness and metaphysics on TikTok in short bursts, and sometimes on YouTube, sometimes on Twitter. But they're not putting any deep studying of analysis because the learning about the information is not the part that is powerful. It's the studying of it because of what it does to your mind while you are developing yourself. The masters didn't come from what they know. They came from the process of learning and having a mind that can cipher through information that was considered to be boring to this generation. They didn't have all the stimulation, so they literally got their stimulation, right, from becoming passionate about a process of researching, meaning that you search once, you search again, you research. You have to make sure it's right. You have to go down these rabbit holes, and that develops that neuroplasticity to where you have a strong mind, to where you're seeking the truth. And you keep going and keep going and keep going. That's a completely different mind. A reading mind is different than a mind that just views. A reading mind is a mind that is activating both hemispheres of the brain, the left and the right. And then in the middle, that colossum, that X, it then creates a hemisync because you're looking and you're reading, right? So you have the concentration at the same time, being able to focus. And you then also put yourself in a zen of a meditation. So this is the power that has been hidden from this generation, is that they put you in front of screens and you thought the knowledge was the power. And the whole time it was the activation of the knowledge. It was the process of the knowledge that was the power. So no, they don't care what you know because they know you won't do anything with it. But if you got a mind that is willing to go all the way across the world for what they know, what would they do when they get a hold of the knowledge? Oh, they go utilize it. They gonna milk the hell out that knowledge till this last ounce, right, is dried. They can take a little bit of knowledge and go far because ancient men didn't need all the secrets of the world to build. But our generation thinks that we lack something. What do you mean you lack something? You got more knowledge and information and exposure than any other generation at any other point in time. So how it is that you need more? It's an insecurity. Perfectionism keeps you in your feelings and your emotions. Then keep you connected to things that don't matter. So now you have all this information that's useless. Has nothing to do with your craft, your skill, your life, your goals. So sure, you're taking in information, but it's not valuable knowledge. It's just new knowledge. You're learning all these new things, but these things don't mean a damn thing. Not to you, not something that you can use. If you go look at the last 30 to 60 days, how much of that knowledge is directly proportionate to you being able to utilize that to produce your goal into reality so you can strategize with it and execute on it? Mm-mm. So, our consumerism today, because everybody can agree, they don't want to just be a consumer. You have to be a producer and a creator. The consumerism is the fact that all we do is scroll to be fed. We're consumers. On social media, we're consumers. We consume, consume, consume. And it's okay if it's things that make you think. But when it's things that think for you, that's when you're being socially manipulated. So your goal is to have that focus. Is to reset the dopamine of attention. Is to go through your lists for 2025 and ask yourself who needs to be there. Who should you still be following? Is to go reset your algorithm. We can, I like talking about hip hop. But we can talk about it all day long. And unless you're an artist, none of those things are actually going to affect you. Somebody called me on my other phone, and I gotta reset my Instagram. But those things are not going to affect you. Those things don't even matter. If they mattered, then they wouldn't tell you in the first place. So we have to be careful being grown men who don't go deeper into the analysis to make sure that the people are fed something that matters. And instead, you just start chasing these numbers and you become like a tabloid, not real news. Because it was said that most people, this generation, is getting their news from influencers. That's fine. But are you tabloid or are you real news? Do you actually have sources for what you have? It's okay. Give your opinion, express it. I'm fine with that. That's cool. But you want to have some integrity in what you're doing. Otherwise, it becomes really lame. The reason that we win so much, over 99% of the podcasts that's out there and the shows that's out there, is because we actually have real in-depth conversations. It breaks up the algorithm. It goes against your day. And the reason that 99% of the gatekeepers try to ignore is because their business model is that you don't stay focused. Their business model is you gamble, you drink, right? You eat bad foods. Why? Because their advertisers are paying their bills. And as long as their audience is consuming the products of the advertisers, then their business can continue to grow and thrive. That's it. Advertisers run the culture. That person that you're watching is not talented. They didn't get a deal because they're the best. They got a deal because they can utilize their audience to sell you things that you don't need. That's it. There's nothing special about them whatsoever. The devil just know that he can get them to work for him. Most people think about the devil as like this horned guy, right? Or this evil looking character. So if he walked up to you, you would reject him. So he comes in disguise, comes in the form of a friend, comes in the form of your favorite, and then he speaks to you through them. So if they have his mind and his ideas, then he will accept them and amplify them. In the movie Who Cloned Tyrone, it was very interesting because they showed certain people being cloned. Certain people got cloned. But what a lot of people missed, was who didn't get cloned. It wasn't about who did get cloned. It was about who didn't get cloned. And why not? Because there's certain archetypes that they don't want to exist. It's certain archetypes that they don't want to grow and develop. They don't want the strong, the masculine one, the ones that think for themselves. They want the ones that are missing a part of themselves. And they say, well, let's give you this metric, let's give you this bonus, let's give you this look. And they say, well, man, I ain't never had none. If you give me this, then shoot, I'm with you. They don't want to see more 19 keys in the world. Otherwise, they would have been amplified my voice. We fight for every ounce, right, of energy that we receive from the people. We have a completely 100% organic, people-based movement. Now, I respect those people who have had me on their platform and individuals like myself. And a lot of times it's because they had no choice. And not everybody, like it's some really solid people that I rock with. But by no choice, what I mean is they was chasing the clout. Oh, this thing is popping. Let me have them on. Fine. I'm happy with that as well. We got to play the game for what it's worth. But we play the game to change the game, not keep it the same. So this is the time of infiltration, execution. 2025, small groups to where we have our own digital states, our own digital economies. We come together for a common cause, right? And we execute inside those groups, investment clubs, buying assets, having our own governing bodies. It's okay if you still want to vote. It's just let's do things to a point where they have maximum efficiency and ask ourselves today, what is the updated version of this? And that's always been what I represented, the updated version. We can still pull on the integrity and the earnesty of the ancestors of the past. 100%. We never forget those. We connect that bridge. But it's like Sankofa. We look back while moving forward. We don't look back and go that same direction. So when you understand that, then we can grow. And no, we're not rebuilding Black Wall Street. I don't want to rebuild Black Wall Street. I want to make something completely new. I don't want to reconnect to a past trauma. That was one city in Oklahoma. And unfortunately, we connect to it not because of the greatness, but because of the trauma so much. So, no, I want to build something completely new because that was their ideas with Greenwood in those days. And what they did was powerful for their time. But we can do something 1,000 times bigger and better than Black Wall Street. And we got to stop letting the trauma of the past, right, be a real thing that exists in us. I'm healed from that. That happened. We move forward. We have more money, more power, more status than Black Wall Street ever had. It's just that we are so decentralized. When we do our new thing, it's going to have a completely new energy on it. A completely new energy on it. I'm not dealing with that old energy. We stuck in the past too much. And if you don't like that, so be it. I thank our ancestors for the lessons that they left behind. But we are the new ancestors because 100 years from now, people will be talking about the moves that we made. Because sure, you can still talk about something from 1920, but what about 1820, 1720, 1620, 1520, 1420, 1320, 1220, 11? You forget all those ancestors. We got about a century to where we pull from because that's what we connected to the most. So it's our job to be the new ancestors that decide the future and to realize that we're creating the future and we're creating the past that one day somebody will study. I go see what a time to be alive. These things will be recorded in time. We will have streams like this 100 years in the future that people will look back and say, wow, there was only a few. They will have built-in algorithms to go look at ancestors and say, well, who was investing, who was building, who had the right ideas? And they will say it was only a few. Who was listening, who was executing? The children of today, imagine if you can go ask Siri, hey, what was my parents doing? What were their habits? How come we didn't build success? How come we don't have generational wealth? And they say, well, your father was tricking off all his money. You know what I'm saying? He was doing drugs. He was wilding out. You feel me? He was at the strip club every single night. Your mom's was for the streets. You know what I'm saying? She was focused on the sexual revolution and she did not want to settle down whatsoever. And she would be on these podcasts all the time talking about how men ain't nothing and how she's looking for a baller. And apparently she never found one, which is why you're broke. They ignored every sign. We can see how we can pull up to see how many impressions and how many times somebody tried to get them to invest in crypto or blockchain to build a business or make a product. It actually came by her feed 10,000 times and they ignored it 10,000 times. So this is why you have nothing. You'll be like, God damn. Well, damn. That sucks. But we are those ancestors that I'm talking about. right? Here we are on Black Friday and people want to go buy them a TV. You don't need another goddamn TV, man. Go take that little weak TV you already got, go watch them same weak shows if that's the case. But shout out to all the infinite wealth strategies in here that invested into themselves because they don't want that bot machine in the future telling their children how they wasted all of their time. I feel you. I wouldn't want my children to hear about that as well. You feel me? Like the children of the future that have to still talk about generational wealth because they don't have any. It's gonna be embarrassing. They're like, you still talking about that? We live in it now. Which the children, our children of the future, would be talking about generational wealth. They supposed to just be living it, but they can only do that is if you are actually the generation that produces it and thinking generationally. But not only that, seeing the infinite wealth strategies. The reason that we decided to do a masculine development and feminine development class, we decided to do Web3, we decided to do infinite wealth strategies, blockchain, how to buy, where to buy, everything to do. So we wanted to eliminate excuses. That's what we wanted to do. Because a lot of people will say, well, I don't know how to do it, so therefore I didn't do it. They say, well, the information is everywhere, but can you consolidate it for me? So that's what we did. Well, I still don't know what to pick and where to go. Well, we give you updates in real time of what to buy and what to do, right? We give you enough to where you can literally then go on your own, right? And be self-sufficient and set up to where we've had students that made millions of dollars and tens of thousands of dollars and even teach you how to create your own ebook and products. Now, imagine if you then take that information and you then go teach it to your family. What happens to that generation? First, let's think about what happens if you don't do it. Everything remains the same. We have the same problems, same issues, right? And it becomes Groundhog Day where we're repeating the same reality over and 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 over. Your children are going to be embarrassed by you. We constantly listen to ideas about wealth and we just ignore it. And we say, well, maybe that's not for me. Maybe that's for everybody else. And what is we really saying is that we don't believe in ourselves and we don't believe that we deserve what everybody else is obviously getting. When I see people with things that I don't have, I don't get jealous. I get excited and inspired because it shows me what I can produce as well. When you want what other people have and you get jealous, what you're doing is you're creating more lack in your life because you're projecting an idea of what you don't have, which is lack. I don't have this when you want what someone else has, and it creates more lack. So you're not projecting that by being jealous. You're supposed to be inspired with the spirit that allowed them to produce it. If they have a great mind to do those things, then I have a great mind as well. So now you're producing your mind, you're enhancing your mind, you're amplifying your mind's will to be able to produce those same things. And then you create space in your life and then project in that space the things that you want. But people are operating so backwards. Gratefulness. You're happy that they have it. You create more space in your life for things to be filled. You don't create more lack in your life because we call it infinite wealth strategies, is because it is literally infinite wealth in the world. It is a mindset of abundance. So once you have a fixed growth mindset, you're constantly finding yourself evolving throughout life because you're constantly learning, problem solving, and growing. So you can never stay the same because you're always improving. But if there's infinite wealth, what's your strategy to get you some? What are your steps? What's your mindset? What's your community? What's your environment? Because these things are not done by themselves. Other communities have a culture towards wealth. They have an ideology about buying gold and how to leverage gold. They have an ideology towards risky assets, right? They have an ideology about buying assets. They have an ideology about, educating themselves on the advancement of technology and science so they stay updated and not outdated. They support the strong ones so they can build foundation and framework around it. So during this Black Friday, I suggest people focus on investments and assets in themselves to where they say, this is that time when we're not just going to be consumers, we're going to be investors. So that thing that you buying, that you are spending your money on, should be an investment, something that has a return of investment, meaning an ROI. What is the ROI? When you start thinking based on ROIs and percentages, oh, I'm gonna get 20% back from this, 50% back for this, 100% back from this, you're putting yourself in a wealthy mindset to where the traditions you're projecting or protecting and projecting are not those of poverty, but those of wealth. And if you're in 2025 and you made it all the way to this point and you believe that you have a lack of something, and you believe you can't afford something, it's only because you don't believe in the value of it. Because once we know the value of something, we'll do nothing to stop to get it. We know the value of a person, we'll go high over hills, we'll go out our way to get something. When we understand the value of something, there is no price because we know that the price is always less than the value. So when you evaluate things, you have to look at what is the value of it and what's going to be my ROI. How am I going to dedicate myself to getting that ROI? That's a different mindset. That's when you tapping into that God mindset to now be like the people that you see that always have success. It's only because they have a fixed growth mindset. Somebody asked, what's the price? Infinite wealth strategy is $1,000, which is honestly too small of a price. But for the Black Friday, it's $444, and a lot of people was even asking for payment plans, so that is available as well. So essentially, you'll be able to get it at $222. But that is only available. That's the Black Friday, the pre-Black Friday. After Black Friday goes back up to regular, and it's going to be worth it because we're also adding the communication classes and ebooks and a few other things as well that come along with it. And you're going to get access to the AI supremacy challenge as well. For all those that want to tap into that as well. So the main thing I like to teach is tokenomics. Once you learn tokenomics, you essentially know everything you need to know about cryptocurrency, in my opinion, which is token economics. Understanding how the tokens are built, how to audit it, where to find them, right? How to buy the coins, when to get in, when to sell, having all-time high strategies, where to look for them, understanding the boomer coins and the utility coins and things of that nature. But even bigger than that, you start to learn Web3 and the technology of the future and where everything is going. So you're prepared and you're updated. That to me, I think is the key to our generation having success. This is why I've been teaching it the last 7 years. The last 7 years. And now I feel like, damn, I'm really an OG in this. And once you do something that long, you become an expert. So I'm happy that I've stayed the course, and the thesis that I've had about the future has been correct. And the thing about it is it's not too late. When we see America and Colombia and all these countries starting to create their own Bitcoin reserves, it means what you're doing is you're getting in and you're front running before the countries get in. Because when they flood all of this money in, you want to be in the middle of that flood with your bucket saying, let me get some. Sometimes these things go up so fast, your brain is spinning. But if you're not in position, then you're on the sidelines watching the game. I'd rather have equity in the game. So as you see the new existing technologies go up, you don't want to just be exit liquidity for somebody. No, you want to get in positions when everybody else saying, yo, I'm about to hop in now. And you like, I've been in. You become one of those people that was early. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, I've been in. And now you were one holding the bag and it's going up and up and up and up and up. That's the key. So, family, I don't have much time. I appreciate y'all. I appreciate y'all being a blessing. You know, we gonna close out the Instagram. I gotta call my brother Wall Street Trapper back. You know, we're gonna talk about some of these investments. But I just want to give love and thanks to everybody that's over the holidays that's about to meet your family. I think that you should employ your family to have these conversations around wealth. You should employ your family to have these conversations around building and executing and talking about your investment portfolios and diversification and things of that nature. Because I promise you, these things, yeah, we go eat those plates. It's gonna be a lot of big backing going on. You feel me? But the real conversations we need to have about the future before it's too late of how to build that generational wealth. Instead of going in there still having the conversations over the trauma. Ignore the hell out your annoy your family until they get it. Become an example because they don't have to follow your light. You can be the one. And once you become the example and you start winning and you start executing, then they're going to follow. But it'd be better to be able to teach them so that you don't have to pay what we call the poor tax. Poor tax is when you have to help everybody else out because nobody else is doing it because you come from a poor circumstance. So the evaluation of your wealth is not really your wealth, right? The money you make ain't really the money you make because you have to be the one helping everybody out of their struggles and their troubles and their debts. So we want to get rid of that and get people to become responsible for their own wealth. But then there's also ways to where you can invest for the family once you know what you're doing. So they can have their percentages go up and their bags going up as well. And you teach that discipline. And then you telling them, like, listen, if you don't follow this blueprint, then I ain't helping you at all. And then that makes you more comfortable with saying no to them. You know what? I told you what to do. I gave you the game. Here are your options. You do it or you don't do it. So don't matter if they homeless, it don't matter what's going on with them. They know that their life is in their hands, and you tried to give them something worth way more than money. So, family, I appreciate y'all. Y'all have a beautiful and y'all have a blessed and a powerful day. And I want to thank everybody and welcome everybody that's new into the infinite wealth strategies into this movement as we go into 2025. And we're going to go together. We're going to grow together. We're going to build together. Yes. Peace and